right, welcome to the book club. I'm Dylan, here with my own tin can of a sidekick, Keith. What's up, buddy?
And I'm here with Dylan, a.k.a. the Bonnie guy. All right.
Not bad. Here at the Buddy Book Club, we're bringing out some bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing Columbus Day, Book 1 of the Expeditionary Force series, written by Craig Alanson. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us in any past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter, Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, where you get your podcast. Please download, give us a 5-star review, say how you feel in the comments, and if nothing else, give us a follow on the social channels. Please and thank you. Keith, I was going to jump into Stock Up, Stock Down for this one, but I hear a book report was put together.
Oh, yeah. Columbus Day is a sci-fi adventure story that takes a humbling, used correctly, look at mankind and our place in the universe. It asks the question, what if humans aren't that great at anything outside of being humorous and not killing innocent civilians? Especially Americans. We've never, ever killed any innocent civilians. Our main character is Joey Bishop, an everyday blue-collar man turned hero. He likes making jokes, eating cheeseburgers, laying with women, and has a wicked sick Boston accent, according to the audiobook. What I'm trying to say is he's basically me and D-Man. Or, like every protagonist in Andy Weir's books, but likable and doesn't drone on about science for 90% of the book.
Yeah.
If you like Independence Day or Men in Black or any 90s action comedy, you'll like this.
Yeah, I like how you went with 2 Will Smith movies and then just any 90s action comedy. If you like Independence Day, Men in Black, Hitch, and 7 Pounds, or whatever that movie was, and then check out Concussion.
Wild Wild West. Look at Wild Wild.
Don't get me started on that movie. Yeah, that was all right. I'm going to give it a 76.
Okay. I thought pandering to you, saying you're a hero that likes cheeseburgers, has a good Boston accent, and gets with women would give me a couple points up, but apparently not.
It's funny you mentioned the Andy Weir thing, because he used the same publishing company, I think, that Andy Weir used, or at least for the audiobook. The Martian, the guy who does R.C. Bray, I think his name is, who's the narrator for the audiobook, is the same narrator for The Martian. He's not doing a Boston accent, he's doing a Down East accent, which is similar but different. Down East is a Mainer accent. Let's get into Stock Up, Stock Down. Stock Up, what do you got?
Stock Up, Skippy.
Oh, the peanut butter?
I did obviously like the AI unit, but I'm talking about the peanut butter. And I know you're a proud brand loyalist around when it comes to Heinz ketchup. Yeah. But for me, it's the peanut butter. I think I've done taste tests with Skippy versus
Jif,
all those other fucking shitty knockoffs. But Skippy peanut butter is by far the king. It's a great name. Is there anything else other than Heinz that you champion? Yeah,
I don't drink soda, but if someone was to offer me a Coke or a Pepsi, I would say I want a Coke.
Okay.
So I'm not like necessarily brand loyal in that sense, but my grandparents, who loved their sodas, good Midwestern folk, are pop. They're pop. Yeah.
Thank you.
My grandmother was, I think it was caffeine-free Coke, and my grandfather was a Pepsi guy, and it was like, in the house you had to have
divided.
both. And I was like, wow, you're just
Shakespeare type shit.
Someone's got to figure this thing out. Yeah. It's the Montagues versus I forget the other ones. But yeah, so I don't think so. I think I'm a Diamond Kosher salt guy. Diamond Crystal Kosher salt. So
okay.
If you're going to get into salts. But no, other than I don't think so. I am a Skippy over Jif guy for sure. We didn't have a lot of sugar in the household as a child, as I've said before. And we also have a local peanut butter brand here in Massachusetts called Teddy, which is now, I think they sell it countrywide. But it's really good. It's just natural peanut butter, so it's just peanuts and salt. So it's really good. We grew up with that. I still eat that to this day, but I remember when my mom started allowing us to get like Skippy, and we got a Costco membership, and you could get Skippy at Costco. Oh my God, I used to just like spoonfuls, because it's just candy. It's just like peanut butter candy.
Well, it's really healthy. I don't know why you're saying that.
Do you remember when they released the Reese's peanut butter, and you could buy it in a jar?
No.
Oh yeah. Ooh. Yeah, my older brother dangerous. Like got that and let us try it, and it was like the greatest thing ever. I just remember when that came out, it was like, wow, this is crack for kids.
I do remember like 5 years ago they released natural peanut butter Skippies, and I was like, oh, I'm eating healthy now. This is great. And then you look at the ingredients, they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like the calories, the sugar, all that other stuff, like every single thing line
Sure.
item is exactly the same. The last three ingredients are like slightly different somehow.
Well, all natural isn't a phrase that's
It doesn't mean anything.
relegated or whatever by the FDA. You know, if you say no antibiotics or something, then the FDA.
Listen,
has
I
to
was
make
eating
sure.
healthy.
Anytime you see all natural on anything, you can put all natural on crack.
All natural Skittles.
It doesn't. Yeah, it literally doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And sorry to divert us here. I actually did really like Skippy. I thought it was a great AI or computer program, but I do have a stock down that's coming up that's related to that.
Okay.
But I just did want to make sure this ties back to the book a little bit.
Yeah, let's stick with the food theme here with my stock up. And I mean, it has to be cheeseburgers. We got to talk about cheeseburgers at some point, because our main stud here, Joe Bishop, the whole time he's paradise or coming back from paradise or on the ship, or even when he gets back to the States and hasn't had the opportunity yet, he's just craving a cheeseburger. And because he talks about it so often, it had me craving a cheeseburger. Maybe it's the only like foodie aspect of me, but I don't like going out to a restaurant and ordering a cheeseburger. I feel like it's just like too easy. If it was, I don't know, some sort of specialty blend or something like that, I'd give it a try. But so with that being said, I don't eat cheeseburgers a lot, but summer's around the corner, and that means barbecues, and I like a mean smash burger. Big fan of a good smash burger. So I think if I was coming back and really craving a cheeseburger, I'd want like a smash burger with grilled onions and Big Mac sauce. What's your cheeseburger of choice? Like, how do you like your cheeseburgers? You like them thick patties? You like thin patties? You know, you want the thing rare? How do you do it?
Yeah, I actually didn't mind his order. I like the cheddar. I like the cheddar order from him. I apprecited that.
Yeah.
I'm a big cheddar
American
guy.
cheese guy here, but yeah.
I'm also, you say you don't like going out for it. I like diner burgers. So like the almost like the Wendy's type, but like buttery on that flat grill, or like a steakhouse burger, like one of those thick burgers with like good fries. Everything else in between, I think, you're right. You can probably just make it at home.
Do they do cheeseburger subs out west, or is that just
They don't. I need to bring it out here almost.
Yeah, like you go to a pizza joint or whatever around here, and you get that cheeseburger sub. Maybe ask them to chop up the burger patty a little bit, so it's not just kind of like stacks. Oh my god, that's so good. What do you think you would crave? Like, would you be looking for a cheeseburger if you were away from Earth for several years, or what do you think you'd be looking for?
I think the meat aspect is what they're really craving.
Yeah,
you can't really beat a hot pizza for me. So what about you? I
think I'd want a big bowl of like beef pho, like that. Yeah, like the Vietnamese soup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I was thinking about it just as I was digging a hole outside before we started chatting, and I was wondering like what it would be like, because it hits that. I agree with you. It's the meat note.
Well, the thing is, I don't feel like you can't be gluttonous with that though. Whereas a pizza, I'm like, I'm gonna eat 8 slices tonight. You can't do like 17 bowls of that, can you?
You go to Pho Pasteur in Chinatown in downtown Boston, and they give you all you can massive. Eat? No, but the XL bowl is massive. But I don't want any of that like tripe. I don't want the beef intestine in it. That's just not for me. You know, stick with the brisket and the eye round. That's all I need. Okay. I think we're on the same page there. What else you ever stock up?
Chivalry stock up.
Oh,
this is early on in the book, so you might not remember this, but I kind of laughed at this scene in particular. So they get onto the new planet that is Paradise. Bishop and the training planet. Sorry.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
What's that called? Alpha, I think, or something.
Sure.
And they're not used to the heat. It's super hot, and like the gravity's super high, and that everyone's struggling. He sees a woman there, and then she's like struggling to walk, and he's like, oh, she's about to like pass out. So he goes up and like, hey, like, you all right? She's like, just because I'm a woman, you don't need to like treat me differently. He's like, nah, I treat anyone like this. And they're like, she's like, all right, thanks. And drinking some water, and then he sees a dude who's doing the same thing, who's struggling, and he watches him, and he face plants into the ground, and he's just like, that's too bad. I was like, wait a second. Yeah. It's the exact same thing that just happened.
He's like, sucks to be you.
They're like, what a pussy. You stand up on your own 2 feet, bud. So I appreciated that. The chivalry wasn't dead here. I also appreciated Joey Bishop. No kissing and telling, you know?
Yeah.
You know, he's just like, I appreciated that. And it also kind of gave a lot of women empowerment in this book. I feel like women were in charge of a lot of things. They're pretty heavily in the army. And what's her name? Shauna was like, I'm just using you for sex, like, you know, to Joey Bishop. And he was like, my feelings are hurt. I was like, all right, Joey. Okay. All right.
Honestly, that's how I would feel too. I'd be like, I'm just in it for the sex. And then they'd be like, I don't like you. I'd be like, oh.
Well, no one's ever told me I'm good at sex. I would be
Oh,
okay with that.
same here.
My ego
Same
would be
here.
boosted pretty good.
Yeah, it's funny because I was reading some reviews on Goodreads, which this is like a 4.3, I want to say. I didn't write it down, so I forget. But I think it's like a 4.3 on Goodreads, which is pretty high, which is also interesting because there's a ton of negative reviews. So I was wondering how they all evened out. But one of them in particular, and I saw this a couple times, was talking about how there's not enough like fleshed out women characters in the book or whatever. It's like, oh, it's just like there's no women characters. Like so many women characters, like the head pilot, super important job, woman. The president of the United States, woman. The leader of the Ruhan, woman. And one of the things they hate about the Kristang is that they like treat women as basically vehicles for babies, and that's it. And
And they compare them to the Nazis.
It's deplorable. So I found that interesting. I think that person's take was just bad, honestly, because I think there is good female representation in this. I think it was lost in the fact that there's really no ancillary characters that are fleshed out. So woman or man, it doesn't really matter. The story is about Joe and Skippy. That's set in a larger galactic battle that's going on. So shame on you, that person. Shame on you. Yeah. It's like they just wanted to have a hot take. I don't know. There's no hot takes necessary.
I mean, if you're going to read a military book with the cover looking like a sci-fi thing, we're not going to get some notebook type level characters. Let's be honest, okay? So
yeah,
you just got to come in knowing that.
It's like, yeah, I read Old Man in the Sea and right before this, and I'll tell you what, Hemingway's prose is way better than Craig Alanson's. So my next stock up is leading by example. Stock up. Our buddy Joe here, or as you like to affectionately call him, Joey. Natural leader. This self-deprecating nature is important for sure. Additionally, he admits what he doesn't know, which is vitally important as a leader, especially in a situation where you're in space fighting against these creatures you don't even really know anything about, and you're doing it on behalf of another set of creatures you don't know anything about. The leadership in general is lacking in sharing of information. So Joe, by admitting, hey, I'm not really 100% sure about what's exactly going on, but here are my principles and here's why I'm doing it, people want to follow that kind of person. And additionally, when things go wrong or something along those lines, he takes accountability for it, whether they go wrong or right. He doesn't ask anyone to do anything he wouldn't do himself. It's like, hey, we got to grab these rockets. Like, I'm taking 2. It's like, oh, okay. Like, Joe's taking 2, so I can carry 1. He's got open and honest communication with his people. Granted, he did kind of like lead them off planet and then tell them what they were going to do, but that's, sometimes you got to do that as a leader as well. And then additionally, he takes on personal sacrifices for the men and women under his command. I couldn't imagine only having basically like a terrible protein shake. When you sometimes mix a protein shake together in the blender and you put like too much spinach in it or something, and it's like, oh, this is fucking
I've never
gross.
put spinach in a protein shake ever, but
yeah,
go on.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, this is disgusting. That's pretty much what he's eating all the time. And even though the rest of the folks only have MREs, at least there's like a cookie in those MREs or something where he's just slugging down this gross stuff. So I just thought Joe was a really good leader and also just a likable character in general. He just seems like just another guy, but he also sells himself short at how smart he is, because he's always talking about either books or historical figures or stuff like that he uses as references that I think go over a lot of other people's heads. And he's just, I don't even know where he learned it. Maybe he's just like loves Jeopardy or something, which I would also respect. But yeah, I just thought Joe was a really good character. What did you think about Joe? Because he is really what this book.
No, I think you nailed it with everything there. I did appreciate that he was modest, although the end of the book that was one of my hates. He's modest to a fault. He's like, I got to take off the colonel ranking that I got. I got to do all these things and go back to my... I was like, bro, you literally saved the world. You can stand up for yourself a little bit now. You can kind of have a little bit of swagger. That doesn't mean you have an ego.
I couldn't agree with you more there. I think he does have to take off the colonel because it was like an in combat kind of promotion or whatever the case was, or in theater promotion. So I respect him being like, yeah, I have to take that off, and not being like, I know I deserve this now, but at least say, I deserve a ticker tape parade or something. I just saved the friggin' world. Like the first thing I do when I came down, I would be like, hey, Madam President, I need a cheeseburger. And she'd be like, immediately, I'll get that for you. It's like, yeah, all right.
We talked about it for the last book, but the CIA also was just kind of being like, you should have done things differently. And this is how it works. It's like, shut the fuck up. You know, you got to shove them in the corner.
Yeah.
You know, tell them what's good.
I would give him a noogie. I'd put that guy in a headlocking and you give him a noogie. And you just like, that's the kind of mentality you'd be in.
I'd be like, hey, Skippy, what's this guy's address? He'd tell me, like, all right, do you want to get your house blown up right now? Like, don't talk to me like that ever again, you know? I'd probably take the power to my head a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah. I did like his fight with Constantinople or whoever the scientist was when he met him at the bar.
Well, he should needed to be stuffed in a locker. Like, come on. Like, that's all we needed for that.
Give that guy a swirly.
It was kind of like the football mentality. It's like, you're a great player, but you're not good for the team. You're not a team chemistry guy, and we can't have that. And I was like, love it.
I didn't understand how that wasn't vetted by the people that put the list together. Like, he had to go in there and say, yeah, this is not a personality fit. That's like one of the biggest parts of sending astronauts to the International Space Station and stuff like that. It's like, all right, you're going to spend 180 days in a confined space together. Like, can you operate as a team? You know, are you a personality fit with these people? Otherwise, people go crazy. Point. So the fact that he even made the cut from the humanities side is like, yeah, maybe the Chris Stang were right.
Yeah, agreed.
Did you have any other stock ups?
Last one is American guns stock up. I mean, I know the M4 gets talked a lot about. They're like, all we have is this M4. But you know what? The M4 is still shooting when the AI tries to take it over. Mm-hmm. We still get the gunpowder. We still firing there. I mean, it sounds like these advanced technological guns aren't all that great because they roll in and just basically diffuse like a whole ship worth of people because they have like brain implants and then all their guns stop working. It's like, oh man, just give me a good old Colt 45 and we're good to go. Like, that's what you need in these wars up there. So gunpowder, red, white, and blue. Lesser technology. That's what we do down here in America. So we love that. Stock up.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Skippy can pretty much just take control of any sort of weapon system he can, except for ours. Stock down. What do you have for stock down?
Stock down, I only had one, and I already referenced this a little bit, but AI with a sense of humor, stock down. Mm-hmm. I think this is pretty popular these days in the AI world or the robotic world, is like making the AI or robot the comic relief. Obviously, Star Wars started it. It was pretty big there. And then even the Rogue One with that robot, it was like, if you remember, like the pilot robot basically just making jokes the whole time. Project Hail Mary, I know that wasn't an AI that they meet, but it basically was. It was like a robot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty much the same thing. We thought about the consequences here. I feel like I'm just imagining AI with that sense of humor just ragging on me and pulling up embarrassing videos on the internet being like, look at this kid, like this is what he used to do. And I'll be like, what the hell? And like just openly talking about my internet search history. He's like, do you want to see what Keith been searching at night? I'm like, oh shit, but cut it, you know? Like, they have too much power to be able to rag on people.
Yeah.
Or like pulling out like old test scores or papers or things like that they have digitally saved. And there's like, you see this? I don't want that type of history or that type of power, because like, if we had that access to our friends' stuff, we'd be using it. You know what I mean? So they now have all that. Oh, it's too much power.
The psychological warfare would be insane.
It's too much. So I think we just make them analytical. Let's cut the sense of humor. Skippy should have been blackmailing people with internet search history the whole time. Like, that would have been all he had to do. He doesn't realize the power he has.
I couldn't agree more. And similarly, one of my stock downs was having to live with an all-seeing artificial intelligence that's around you 24 hours a day, which Joe Bishop does. And we know that Joey B is a sexual being after, the coitus that occurred with Shauna on Paradise. And he liked it very much. And man or woman, you're going to need a release when you're out in the world for months at a time, especially in these hectic situations. And he's got Skippy on his nightstand like an Amazon Alexa. It's there recording, living in the moment with you. It's honestly just like having another person looking over you all the time, but he has to have Skippy with him. So I guess he's comfortable with it. I don't know, but did Joe just not do anything? No pleasure in the palace of the ship for the whole time. I had some questions about that, because even towards the end, Skippy's making jokes like, oh, Joe, about like, do you not like women or whatever the case is? Joe's like, I like women, But it's like, Joe should be like, I like women. You just are on my shoulder the whole time. I can't bring up, brazzers.
Well, Skippy could turn into whatever he wanted, if you know what I mean. He could use a little relief into Skippy. All right, too much? Too soon? Too far?
Skippy comes back shook. Like, Joe violated me in space.
Yeah. He changed my shape. What did he do?
Yeah. I mean, Skippy would have to consent, that's for sure. So that's what matters. My other stock down was the duck test. I mean, we're all familiar with the duck test. If it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So I want to talk about a little bit of the Kristang and Ruhan situation here, because the whole time the UEF, right? That's what it is, like the United Expeditionary Force, and the governments associated with it are all Team Kristang. So I understand the Kristang, like, quote unquote, saved the human race from the Ruhan. But immediately afterwards, they're setting up shop and acting like overlords. They're telling the humans what they can and can't do. They're using human soldiers in battle instead of sacrificing their own, and also then like pretty much directing UEF operations on the ground. It obviously comes to a head when they start asking people to assassinate Ruhan, which kind of comes out of the blue and doesn't seem like it was the greatest decision by my account. But still, they're marginalizing women folk like we talked about, exploiting the Earth's resources without concern for its effects on the planet. At one point, they got mad at the UEF for accepting Ruhan medical aid when at this point they hadn't offered, and they never do, but offered humans any of their advanced medical technology. And it's not like you have to tell them the technology. Just be like, hey, get in this pod. It will heal you. And also the Kristang are like lizard people, which down on lizard reptiles in general. And then on the other hand, we have the Ruhan, who all in all have been pretty chill with humans. Like, okay, yeah, they attacked Earth initially, but they limited their attacks to infrastructure and clearly went out of their way to limit human casualties. And on Paradise, they have a good relationship with an occupying UEF force. They had Joe over for tea and biscuits all the time. Would the Kristang do that? And basically my point is, the entire time the Kristang are acting like total dicks. Everyone's saying they're total dicks, but we're still doing their bidding for them against the Ruhan, who are overall pretty chill. It seems like from the get, it should have been clear to everyone that the Kristang were the real assholes.
Yeah. The Ruhan's whole logic, though, didn't make a lot of sense. Or like, Kristang, are they going to come in there and use their resources? So we'll bomb the shit out of them so they don't have resources first. It's like, huh? Why don't you just go there and defend them, and then you could ally with... I don't know. It seemed like Ruhan, the Ruhan weren't all they're cracked up to be either. I think they weren't necessarily the greatest either. They were helping them get them off Paradise, and then they like attack them, and then like a minute later they're like, all right, they're back to being our friends again. It's like, they just attacked you. Like, what do you mean? Like, they're like, yeah, but they didn't try to kill as many.
Who are you talking about? Who's the they here?
The Ruhan.
Oh, okay.
Like, they bombed the military base, and they're like, and then the next day they're like, okay, let's go back to treating them with respect. It's like, fuck that. Like, they just killed a bunch of people.
They bombed the barracks or whatever because no one, or whatever the place was, because no one was supposed to be there. And then it turns out they were there. So yes,
but I mean, that's
still,
I'm sorry. You can't use that as an excuse. Like, you either have to know or you don't do it. One of the, like, two. You can't just be like, oops, like, didn't realize that. You knew there could be a chance that someone would be there. They were given a lot of passes. Obviously, the Ruhan were way better than the Kristang, but like, they were given a ton of passes, the Ruhan, I thought.
I was going to ask for a favorite scene, but one thing this book was missing were some fun action sequences. Like, we're talking about a military situation on another planet against different types of aliens. I feel like there should have been like a cool ground battle or space battle.
It felt much more like day in the life, which I thought was cool. You're kind of just following along, even though he was lucky a lot. It seemed like he kept on having interesting stories, but it did seem like not a lot was happening, which I think made it better, honestly, that it was just like day in the life of what it's like to be here and what the atmosphere is like. I thought that if it was just action the whole time, I'd be like, all right, whatever. Yeah. I actually like that.
I liked it as well. I'm not saying I didn't like it. I just felt that there was a lot of exposition, which I enjoyed because I wanted to know about the characters. I wanted to know about the political situation, like the galactic political situation. But it got to be a lot of that, and then there wasn't enough action for a military thing, especially when, in my mind, I'm just thinking Starship Troopers. So I was like, okay, where's the battle against the giant bug? Or where's the flying bugs that come in and start messing people up?
I did like the prison escape where they are like, all right, fuck these guys. Let's work turning against our allies. I was like, all right, there we go.
That's a good one, especially because it leads up with the conversation with the Major when he's like, yeah, the Christanger fucked. Like, they're doing all this fucked up shit. It's like, oh, okay, I agree with you. And then all of a sudden they're escaping. And then Joe's putting the people together to shoot down a couple of ships, which was cool.
I mean, this would make a great TV series, I feel like. It fills in the gaps of like, oh shit, what would we do if there's not action happening? It's like, oh great, we can have this actual story build here.
I think that's a good point. It would be a good TV series or like short miniseries because the book provides you all of the expositions type stuff, and then you can just, fit in the action sequences. I feel like that's when book to TV or book to movie does it better than when it's like an action-packed book and then they have to fill it in with a story, and they totally fuck that up. I'd say pick your character, but it's really one or two. Are you Team Skippy or are you Team Joe?
I'm Team Joe, although the ending, like I said, I was kind of annoyed with him. But other than that, yeah, Joe's the man. I'm Team Joe. But
okay. Yeah, I'm Team Jippy. I'm just going to steal it. It's not fair.
Jippy?
Yeah, because like they're so good together.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I think the
power couple.
Yeah, the story got a lot more fun once they were together and bouncing stuff off of each other. I liked Joe anyways. He's a good Mainer.
He also took what my advice of treat everyone like they're adults. And that's why Skippy got along with them. He's like, everyone else is not treating me like I'm a real person, and you are. So that's why when I go up to babies and I'm talking to them like that, they respect me also more. So see? Yeah. It always comes back to that, D-Man.
Yeah. You're the niece's favorite uncle now because you're like, hello, how old are you? You're 6. That's a good number. I like the number 6.
When I go up to them, like, hey, how's it going? And I just talk to them about stuff they like and then get out of the way. Because I know they don't really want to talk to me.
Well, you just find some video games or whatever they're doing, and you just go in there and you like crush it. And they're like, wow, you're the best video game player ever.
Well, my niece has already read, she's like 8 or 9. She's all read all of the Harry Potters, all of the Percy Jackson. She just reads everything. And I'm like, oh, I can like talk to her on that level. Eventually, once she turns like 12, she's going to be above my knowledge, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. She's going to be like, Uncle Keith, what did you think about Dostoevsky? You'd be like,
it's like flowers for Algernon right now. I'm like at that point we're both the same intelligence level. She's eventually going to be the genius.
Oh, it's so good. A quick little about the author, because Craig Alanson, as you didn't know, was from Springfield, Massachusetts.
Oh,
so
wow.
You got to respect that. And another sci-fi writer who started writing on his free time self-published this book, Columbus Day, and because of the way it was received, which was with high praise, it allowed him to write full-time because he got greenlit for more books in the series. And as we said, the audiobook is narrated by R.C. Bray, who does a hell of a Down East accent. I know it is a little Boston-y. Have you seen, and I'm just going to spoil one of my loves because it is the narrator himself, because I feel like he brings Joe Bishop and Skippy to life, especially Joe. He just makes him seem like an everyman kind of guy. But I was wondering if you had ever seen the show Down East Dickerin'. It's like a History Channel show.
I've never even heard of that.
Have you seen like American Pickers, like those guys who like go around and like buy stuff for cheap or whatever, like old trinkets and stuff? It's pretty much that, but it's in Maine. So it's a bunch of guys who basically, there's like a local Craigslist but in paper form that's just for Maine, and they go to the diner and they open it up and they try to find things. They go around town and they negotiate or dicker for the goods they're looking for, but they all have these phenomenal Maine accents. If you haven't seen it, it's worth just like checking out a clip of it, because they're pretty good.
So
characters.
it is, you can tell the difference between Boston and Maine.
Yeah, like if you watch that show, for sure. I think he does a pretty good job here, but if you went to YouTube and just watched a quick video of what their thing is, you'd see they're similar but different. It's almost like Boston accent, but less trashy, more country.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
R.C. Bray was one of my loves, but what else did you love about it?
So I already said it kind of in the opening, but it did remind me a lot of Project Hail Mary and that type of writing in terms of like dad jokes, kind of poking fun at stuff. But it wasn't just a ton of made up science. It was like, remember how we talked about like the one negative for Project Hail Mary? It's like I needed someone that was dumb to come in and like explain it in those terms. Like that's what they did with this book. They're like, all right, and then I'm just going to call this, these guys beavers. I'm going to call this.
Yeah. It's like, oh, we have a Humvee, but it's there, so we're going to call it a Hamvee.
Yeah, right. I thought it was clever in the fact that it wasn't, the humor wasn't super forced. It was a much better story. And like I said, you felt like you were in the day of the world life of that. It made it feel realistic, whereas a lot of that Project Hail Mary and that stuff where my biggest complaints is like, this is stupid.
So this was more like The Simpsons to you, and Project Hail Mary was more like Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, Big Bang Theory, or no, it's probably more like
Frasier.
Frasier, exactly. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Exactly. Where you're just like, all right, these jokes I kind of know are coming, but it's like you're like rolling your eyes at them.
I haven't seen Frasier, but people like it. I don't know. Or used to, obviously. It's not around anymore. One of the things I loved, and we kind of talked about it, but was the Joe and Skippy relationship. What's interesting is the internet, when I looked at these reviews, we're kind of split on this relationship. Some people found it endearing and funny, and others thought the relationship was like one dad joke after another, interspersed with pop culture references. And I agree on both accounts. I don't know why they were saying it in a negative, that it's one dad joke after another interspersed with pop culture references, because one, I enjoy a good dad joke as much as the next guy, who everyone should. And pop culture references are wonderful. So they're going back and forth on this stuff. It just seemed like they had a great rapport about it. And I found it endearing and funny, and I did enjoy the content as well. So I guess some people wanted more serious stuff.
Yeah, isn't that like how Bill Simmons became famous? That's what he would do. He would just do pop culture references and then like sports and dad jokes combined. Like that's what he was, right?
Yeah,
that's why he became
maybe
popular.
Less of the dad jokes, but definitely the pop culture references. His stuff was almost, in some ways, and I mean this in a positive, not a negative, but like a BuzzFeed thing before BuzzFeed, in the sense of which NFL teams are Sopranos characters. You know, that kind of thing.
I see what you're saying. But it was also like 6,000 words on that versus BuzzFeed being like, what? Yeah, versus BuzzFeed being like, here's a picture of that person.
Yeah, BuzzFeed was terrible content, but the idea, I feel like, is what Simmons would do. He'd use The Sopranos as a vehicle for the sports knowledge that he wanted to talk about. So, I mean, I used to love that back in the Page 2 days when he'd do mailbags, but unfortunately that doesn't happen anymore. He used to do The Wire stuff a lot. How are you in The Wire so far? Where are you?
I just finished it.
Oh, did you?
It's a hot take. I don't know if you agree with this or not, but after rewatching it, I do want to say the season 5, I think I place after season 2. I don't think it's that. It doesn't hold up nearly as much as
season 5 the last season?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think season 5 might actually be the worst season.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Actually, I'm having a tough time because we started watching it recently because I talked about that we were going to start, and you were watching it, and I was like, all right, and Caroline hadn't seen it. We'd watched The Sopranos, so I was like, all right, we should start doing this. Burned through the first season. Fucking love it. I mean, I just love it so much because I've seen it a few times, and so I know what's coming to some degree, and there's so much that's actually going on in terms of the dialogue between characters that it is hard to follow sometimes. And then you put that in that there's also a urban dialect going on that is sometimes hard to understand. Think about later, who's the woman gangster that comes in? She's
she's a real Baltimorean.
Yeah, she is a real gangster actually. So she's hard to understand. We're on season 2 now, and I really like season 2. How did you feel about the overall political structure in this? Like, were you interested? Is this a love or a hate for you in the Chris Dang are working for these people who are working for these people, and you know, that kind of not geopolitical but like galactic political situation?
I mean, the Klein stuff it made perfect sense to me. I mean, that's what Vietnam was, and that's what.
Oh, you mean like the proxy war type stuff?
Yeah, there's just proxy wars. They're like, we're too powerful to fight each other, which is exactly what U.S. and China and U.S. and Russia do already, right now, too. And that's going to last forever. And so we'll just fight in Ukraine. The two big players aren't going head-to-head. So it makes perfect sense to me that they would do that also at the, Universal scale, galactical scale.
Galactic scale, yeah. I think it's a great use of an allegory for what you're saying. Like, this is exactly what superpowers do in this world, and it's just expanded to a galactic situation.
Mm-hmm. They don't give a shit about the civilians either, or like the people that are.
Yeah, the collateral damage just doesn't matter, and they'll go into a country, or in this case, a planet, and have a little fight over it that really doesn't matter. It's more just for posturing. They'll let everyone die, and then they leave, and the place is worse off than when you came in. So I like that as an allegory. So I did enjoy that, but I didn't like how each race just goes up to another race that's just more technologically advanced, which I know is what happens. Like, we were talking in our conversation with Brian Mora, who wrote The Righteous Arrows, talking about the Soviet war in Afghanistan, like us giving them Stinger missiles really flipped the tide in some of the ways for the Afghanis to start taking down Russian helicopters. So I understand that technological thing is there in humanity. But if you're dealing with aliens, you kind of have a blank check. So why not put something out there that's different? Give them some sort of power or ability that differentiates them from the other ones. Because the Ruhan were basically just human hamsters. And the Kristang were basically just like human lizards. And they got the technology that they took from like their overlords, who took it from the other ones, who then like roll up to the collective. I could have done a little more creativity with the different races.
In like Star Wars, do they have, other than the Force, is like, do the different races have?
But in Star Wars, I feel like it's more of a melting pot of so many different like races than this.
But like, what would you want the races to be different, I guess? What would you have them do differently?
I don't know. I want some like telekinesis or something along those lines. They did say that the next people up have more of like the alien people. I can't remember what they were. Have like a sort of like a hive mind type situation, which I was like, oh, okay, that could be interesting. And maybe we'll learn more if we read more. Mm-hmm. I don't really know.
There's 16 books, by the way.
Yeah,
so.
there are. Which is my first hate. Super long series. Hate it. So the Expeditionary Force is now 16 books because it came out, the 16th book came out in like December of last year. And did I enjoy Columbus Day? Yes. Do I want to read 15 more to find out what happens to Earth and the alien forces trying to destroy it? No, not really. Like, there are some questions, obviously, I want answered after reading this book. I'd like to know if Skippy finds the collective. I'd like to know how that works out. I'd like to know what happens to Joe and the crew. But if it's something that is going to take that many books to actually get to, I'm not going to do that. I kind of like when series, if they're going to be long, this Joe story is like a 3-part series. Kind of like Dune in a way, where Dune is like a couple stories, and then all of a sudden it's like 2,000 years later. Yeah, there's like Paul's still there, or whatever the case is. Spoiler alert. But it's kind of a totally different story. We get closure from that. This, I didn't really necessarily get any closure from. It was just like, oh, okay, that story happened. They closed a wormhole, and now like they're going to find the collective. It was just like an episode in a TV show.
I definitely agree. I mean, I'm trying to think of any series that go that long, other than like a Mitch Rapp type series where it's just the next onto the next story. But that's like a different story, yeah. Right. But like Harry Potter was 7, but that was like obviously. And for those listening, book 100, we're starting the series. I think it's rare to have a series that's that long that you can stay engaged with, unless there's a definitive ending. Hey, this is going to be 6 books.
Harry's is every book is a year of his schooling, and he fights a different version of Voldemort at each one, so it makes sense.
Yeah, the one hate I had was just really, I didn't think there was a ton of suspense, mainly because the way he wrote it was like, everything was going great for the plan, and then things fell apart. So we walked it, and it's like, you can't lead it off with that. Like, leave some suspense at the end. Even a bit the first chapter, they were like, the allies we thought were our allies were actually our enemies. So like 3/4 into the book, I'm like, yeah, obviously now we know they're enemies.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because the whole thing was written in retrospect. from a first person perspective, from Joe's perspective, but even like the whole story was written retrospectively, and then individually as things happened, those were written retrospectively, almost like it was a diary entry at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I would love some a little bit more suspense where they're just telling you like almost like it's real time, because obviously I was like, all right, so what's going to go bad now? When they didn't do that, I was definitely surprised. Cool. But like if they were like everything was going bad until I met an AI and that was in chapter 1, I'd been like, oh, this sucks. Now I have to just wait for this part. So I think the AI thing was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. The only other real hate that I had, and I kind of talked about it, was that the rest of the characters are just minimally developed, if at all. There are a bunch of characters, and I assume it's 16 books, so we better flesh out these characters at some point. And it makes a lot of sense for us to be like fully entrenched with Joe. It's from his perspective. The story is about him and Skippy for the most part. So, and about his leadership. So like how he pushes people around. And the reason why this book, we liked it so much, I think, is because it's 300 pages. It's a short, fun read. So we don't really need the side quest on each of the characters. But I think we could have taken out his sexy time at the beginning, like with Shauna. That whole thing could have kind of been cut to really get more from Chang, his like pretty much right-hand man, and the pilot, who I can't remember her name, but also seemed to be like his right-hand lady. Yeah, I thought some of this stuff was probably didn't need to be in there, and more about the characters that we see now, unless he's about to go back to paradise and like save Shauna or something like that. My only lingering question was, I really need to know about the collective, because it seems like they're all knowing, all powerful. Like the whole thing about Skippy not being sure if he can't remember stuff or if it was deleted. I feel like that's kind of interesting. Like I want to know about that. I want to know more about that situation. So I might just have to go down like a wiki dive and check it out. But all right, who did you have as Skippy?
Skippy, I had Ryan Reynolds.
Same.
No way, really?
Yeah,
wow.
same. I was like, put a little like tinny voice on Ryan Reynolds and perfect.
Yeah. All right, well, let's keep it 2 for 2. Who do you have for Joey Bishop?
I had Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, okay. All right.
He can do the Boston accent, which is pretty much a down east accent. We know that. He's a regular type guy, but he's also jacked out of his gourd. Yes, he's a little old.
The
but
other guy's personality with him, I think it'd be good. You're right.
Yeah, he's still got like a younger face, and also at the same time, he's an everyman, but you could also see him as a leader. So. And it takes on more of a fun story, which is kind of what this is, as opposed to like a rock'em sock'em robot story.
Similar, John Krasinski. I think he can be funny.
That was the first thing that came to my head, actually.
And Boston.
Yeah.
So I think he'd be, because he actually can be a serious action actor, which he's proven with the Tom Clancy stuff. Oh, yeah, 13 Hours, yeah.
Funny you say that, because that was the first one that came to my head. But then I thought he's just like a little, I don't know, like a little too
clean cut.
Too serious. I just envision this more as like a fun series than.
I mean, he did The Office.
I know. But just I see it more like fun but bad. It would be a better movie with John Krasinski, but I just don't see it as a better movie. Columbus Day, the first book of the Expeditionary Force series. Keith, would you recommend it to listeners?
Yeah, I think, the 16 book things is definitely tough to get over, but I think this is like one of the ones that you could buy the series, keep them in your library, and you need to grab a book really quick to go out to the beach for. You pick it back up, and I think you could jump back into the series. You don't really need to know a lot or remember a lot of stuff that happened. You jump back in, you feel like you're back home, you're drinking a beer with Joey Bishop, and you're back into the saddle. Even though it's long and there's a lot of books, I do think, and that's like the barometer we always use, would you read the next one? I definitely would, so I would recommend it.
Yeah, it's like putting on easy listening radio or something like that, where you don't have to really pay attention to it. In that, I agree with you wholeheartedly. If I got this on Audible, or Audible offered an option like, hey, download the whole series for 2 credits, I'd be like, oh, sure, of course. And then as I'm in between books or whatever, I'd pick it up and just be like, oh, what's going on with Joe Bishop and the guys?
Yeah,
because,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you might have to remember where you were, but you don't care that much. Like, I don't, I'm trying to not undersell it, because I didn't like love this book, but it's fun. It's a fun read. So if I was in the car and I was like, I don't want to listen to the radio, what am I going to do? I don't want to listen to this other serious book I'm reading. It's like, let's just have some fun with Joe and the guys and gals and go out and read that and see what Joe and Skippy's travels are up to. So yeah, I'd recommend it. It's not going to make, it's not going to make my top 15 or top 20, I don't think, but it was fun. It was fun to read. I appreciate the recommendation for sure. Keith, what do we got coming up?
We have another interview coming up, Scorched by Don Silver, coming of age story. So it should be an interesting read, and we'll have an interview for that. And then after that, we have City on Fire, Don Winslow. And then we have Get Your Harry Potter series warmed up. We're doing the series Book 100, or Podcast 100. We're starting it. We're going to have so many fans by then. It's going to be insane.
Wait. We have Scorched, City on Fire. Also, by the way, 2 Dons. We got Dons back to back. Then Harry Potter.
No.
No.
Okay. We're at, this book is 94. The next will be Scorched, will be 95. Then City on Fire will be 96. And then we have basically 3 books for Harry Potter. I mean, Harry Potter, when we start this summer, God, we're really fucking lining it up perfectly, huh?
I'm actually gonna read the book itself. I think I got my old child copies. So yeah, I got the beach down the road.
I might have to go quit my job and become a lifeguard again and just get the books ready to go for the lifeguard season. That's why I read all of them.
Oh, of course. All right. Well, that was Columbus Day Expeditionary Force Volume 1. We're not going to do the other 15 books at any time soon because it looks like we got a big plan ahead of us. But we'll catch you next time for Scorched and the interview associated with it. Keith, it's been fun, buddy.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Good stuff.
Bye now.
Bye now.